2, 1. We are live. Oh my goodness. I'm going to tell you guys right now, I'm going to tell you right now up front, I am sick. I am sick. This camera's no good. Fix that camera. There we go. I am definitely sick today. So I'm doing my best, trying to do everything I can today, but I'm going to be pretty chill, I think. Pretty chill, trying to do the best I possibly can to continue getting this message out here. I see more and more every day that there are more and more people who are steadily joining the fight, steadily joining, putting their voice into it, putting their energy into it, doing what they can to raise the awareness, raise the discourse, get the conversation going. And it does seem to me like the capitalist death cult is getting more and more desperate. I've been noticing a lot of a ramping up of gaslighting. I've been seeing that ramping up of gaslighting, that sort of Petersonian style. It's all your fault. You shouldn't blame the system at all. Hierarchies are natural, in fact. And instead, that guy Compton, good to see you. And instead, saying that everything's up to you, right? You can't. You shouldn't expect a system to actually operate for the benefit of the people, right? You shouldn't have things like standards or expectations for the society that you live in. Caitlin, Johnstone. I hope so too, Snake. Good to see you, bud. Good to see you. It's so annoying. I was feeling fine yesterday, and then I literally, I started getting a headache just last night, and then I went to bed, and I woke up, and I was just sick. And it's annoying because it's like my day's off. So it's like, yeah, I can't even call in sick to work. Just gotta waste my days off on this nonsense. What was the name of the article? Taunton. I'd like to take a look at it. I really respect Caitlin Johnstone. Caitlin Johnstone's writing is really, really on point and really, really. Hey, dude, are you on TikTok this time or YouTube's? I do both, bud. I do both. If you want to come, I'm more responsive to YouTube than I am to TikTok for very obvious reasons. So if you want to get connected to me on YouTube, it's in the description, bud. You can just click on my profile. It'll take you right there. Come on board. Come on board. The one with the CIA logo. The one with the CIA logo. Oh, here we go. Yeah, the one that says the title of the thing that you said. Okay, great. I love it. You're literally like, look up the latest Caitlin Johnstone about the weaponized free speech. And I'm like, which article is it? It's the one that has the word weaponized free speech in it. Old Star Ouija board. I love your name, dude. That's a great name. Good to see you. Good to see you. Hope you're here to be beautiful. Hope you're here to be beautiful. I'd love to talk more to people on TikTok, but it seems as though every single time I end up talking to people on TikTok, my TikTok stream gets banned. So I don't know why that happens, but it just seems to be what happens. So I've got to be a little bit more. I got to keep TikTok at a bit of a distance. Oh, I'm not on Facebook. I've had to kind of pick and choose what what streaming services to use, and so my foundation is YouTube, and TikTok is where I'm kind of trying to get it out there, right? Can Old Star Ouija board asks, oof. Can you please tell me if Nazis were socialist? People have been telling me they are, and how to argue that. Okay, Old Star. This is. You can basically tell these people that they are hacks and illiterates, right? Here's the history. You'll find that all you need to know to defeat people who are on the right and who are defending Nazis or using Nazis or evoking Nazism is to just know things about the subject. If you read a book called The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, the author, I think his name was William Shire, he goes through all of this. And the history of it is very simple. That Adolf Hitler took over a socialist organization, used socialist language in order to further his movement, but like immediately betrayed any idea of socialism or communism. Like literally the first concentration camps were communist concentration camps. The idea that the Nazis were socialist is literally somebody going, oh, it's the National Socialist Party, and pretending as though, like, and I have found that it is as easy as saying, oh, a psychopathic mass murderer also is a liar. Like, oh, like essentially what the people who are arguing in favor of that Nazis are in fact socialists is that it's not possible for psychopathic mass murderers to also be liars, right? Yeah, that guy I think is nailing it, which is, it's base level gaslighting. It's just literally like pretending as though, and it's so surface level, it's so superficial. Yeah, and it's really low effort. Like, it's really, 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 really low effort. Ugh. No, I don't mind TikTok people here. That's the whole reason I stream on TikTok. Hey, Anemone, how you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you guys. Good to see you guys. Holy cow. Who am I voting for in 2025? I mean, I'm a Canadian, right? Yeah, I'm being an anti-Semite for telling you the history of the Nazi Party. Jeez Louise. No, of course there's TikTokers who are like that. There are CIA assets all over the place, right? TikTok is owned by NATO, right? It's a pro-Western organization that does a good job of pretending like it's actually owned by the Communist Party of China, right? But really, like, the servers are in California, and the reason why they're doing that is because they know they don't have a leg to stand on. Right? They know they don't know anything about the subject. They know they're illiterate. So all they can say is this. Because if you actually know things, then you would never in a million years actually say something so stupid. Right? Like, it's a very dumb thing to say. And it's so easy to just push people over on it. And it's the reason why, like, the people who are saying things like that won't actually have conversations with people who know anything, because it's so sad. Like, it's actually it's actually sad that there are people who are willing to sell their credibility so cheaply, you know, that like, because that's what you're doing. If you're standing up saying that socialism is bad because the Nazis were socialists, then you're basically just putting a price tag on your credibility and saying, I'm willing to no longer be a credible person. Yeah, of course Hitler was a capitalist. He was backed by the industrialists of the day, right? Like, again, I highly recommend reading the book, The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich by William Shire. And he goes through this, although when it comes to this point, he's pretty, like, he doesn't, like, hyper focus on it. There isn't, like, a chapter on this. But he does talk about how Adolf Hitler was backed by the industrialists in Germany. And it was very clear that the reason why he received that backing is because he said explicitly, like, read Mein Kampf, man. Like, he explicitly said that his goal was to purge the society of communists. Who's the primary enemy of the industrialist capitalist class? It would be the communists, right? People who are saying we should seize the means of production. We should get rid of this worthless parasitical class that provides no value to anyone, who is irrelevant, and who we should absolutely be calling out as often as possible, and should absolutely be pointing out how fraudulent they are. And how worthless and pathetic and pedantic, and how they make the society worse at every turn. They add no benefit whatsoever. They're literally just living in a delusional dream world, attempting to embark on fantasies that we're all supposed to worship them over, right? So yeah, obviously the capitalists are going to want to fund somebody who stands up and says, oh, I'll purge the society of these guys. And once again, I state, the very first concentration camps were not Jewish concentration camps. They were communist concentration camps, explicitly. That one of the first things Hitler did was round up political adversaries, the communists, and put them in concentration camps. And then from there, it became Jewish concentration camps, and it became the Romani and the Gypsies and all these people, right? And the so this is my favorite thing when people come over and they start talking about how, well, communism it killed 100 trillion billion. I'm like, Hitler was a communist, was a capitalist, guys. Like, Hitler was a capitalist. Like, World War II was a capitalist war. Like, people who are standing up and trying to condemn communism for killing people in famines and things like this, it's literally like they have no leg to stand on whatsoever. World War II was a massive atrocity that killed like millions and millions and millions of people in capitalist wars of aggression that ended with the nuclear bombardment of 2 civilian targets. Like, capitalists have no right to stand up and actually say out loud to anyone at any moment that your system has atrocities in it. It's like, it's the most embarrassing thing that I think anyone ever does. And yet they do it all the time, and they think they've done like a checkmate. They're like, yeah, checkmate, communist. There was a famine one time. It's just gotten ridiculous, is what it's got. Well, Old Star, that's what I'm here for. And you know what, man? You saying that this has been helpful means that I'm happy I hit record today. I was really considering not doing this stream today because I'm feeling very sick, and I could really be asleep right now. But you saying that this has been helpful. Keep fighting the good fight, my man. I've been trying to catch you live forever, and to ask that the last time I was on your live, I wasn't a viewer long enough to comment, and then the live ended. Isn't that always the way, bud? Well, I'm glad we connected, and I'm here to help people out with this stuff, because I do think there's a lot of gaslighting, and gaslighting is the word. Gaslighting is the word that we have to start using, because that's what they're doing. That's the foundation of the strategy now for the capitalist class. That figures like Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh is a good one, Jordan Peterson is a good one, but now you're starting to even get comments from people like Warren Buffett. Like, the billionaire class, their strategy is gaslighting from a position of capitalist realism. That capitalism is the end of history. We can never evolve or move past capitalism. This is human nature. This is the end of history. And if you want to evolve this society, then you're just fighting against human nature and all of this. And so all of what they say stems from that sort of position, which is why the backbone of their argumentation and what they say is that you need to improve yourself. That's basically what what everything they say comes down to, is that don't pay any attention to the system, don't try to evolve the system, don't try to join collective groups and actually attempt to change the legal framework of how we actually negotiate and talk about one another. Don't try to actually fight back against the system of capital in any meaningful way. No, the only thing that you can do is be a better cog in the machine. That's the best way for you to interact with the world, is just become a really sellable product, is really what, and essentially what people like Jordan Peterson have done. He's just a very saleable product to the capitalist class. He provides a really excellent service to the capitalist, which is to be a professional gaslighter. And if we fall for it, right? If we fall for this idea that capitalism can never be reformed or changed or altered or overthrown or anything, then we're just going to continue to slide down a perpetual spiral of our own self-destruction and self-annihilation, while other cultures that actually do believe that we can create systemic differences and systemic changes take the world over, right? Like, one of the most embarrassing things, and I've got Elon Musk up on the screen, so he's the one who's worth talking about. I think one of the most embarrassing things that we're doing is we're funneling all our resources into these failed pursuits that go nowhere. Like, who gives a shit if we get to Mars? Like, who cares? Even if we achieve it, even if we actually do get to Mars and put a colony on Mars, who cares? Right? It doesn't matter at all. And in fact, it's going to be extraordinarily destructive to our civilization and to our society. So we're funneling all of this money into a dead pursuit that leads to nowhere. It's just this dead end. While Other societies and other civilizations are taking their wealth and funneling it into their societies. That they're building infrastructure and they're building projects and they're building housing and they're doing stuff for their own citizens. And they have ideas about space exploration, but they're actually being rational and reasonable and doing things that make sense. Like, what China is trying to do is build a moon base, and it's from that moon base that they would launch all of their operations, right? Like, the American position is basically like, just throw the rock as hard as possible at Mars and we'll get there. Like, perhaps maybe we should do a thing called planning. Perhaps we should have ideas and thoughts and discuss them. But no, we're not going to do that. Kevin, good to see you, bud. Isaac, a pleasure. The U.S. let all the high-ranking Nazi officers go free and brought the Nazi scientists to work on the weapon industry. Yep, that's correct. Grinning, good to see you. Elon really denies the Emerald Mine, which is embarrassing. Yeah, of course, he should be embarrassed, right? Like, he wants to perpetuate the myth and the lie of meritocracy. You know, what all these gaslighters do. The idea that he's where he's at because he's the best, as opposed to he's where he's at because he's the best positioned, right? Which is the actual truth. Yeah, I'm sure he worked really hard to inherit that emerald mine, though. Absolutely. Yeah, human nature. Yeah, the human nature argument. My favorite thing about the human nature argument is it basically what they are saying is that we should just do away with laws. Like, that is what the human nature argument is. That why have laws against murder? Why have laws against rape? Why have laws against anything? Why put laws in place at all? Right? Like, it's all human nature, right? Like, it's in human nature to murder people, so why have laws against it? That's basically their argument. Like, that's how fundamentally stupid these capitalists have become. That they don't even acknowledge or realize how dark their arguments have actually gotten. Right? Like, their arguments have gotten, like, really, really bleak and really, really dark. And yet they can go on national television and say it, and a bunch of people will be like, yeah, that's right. That's right, Bill Maher. It's human nature. Well, it's also human nature to shoot people and steal their stuff. Should we just not make laws about it? Should we not have discussions about it? Should we not try to curb that behavior? Right? Just because it's human nature doesn't mean anything. It's what we want. It's what kind of world we want to live in and what kind of expectation we have for the people who live in it. And so this human nature argument is just them self-reporting. It's just them saying, yeah, I think slavery is fine. I think that we should enslave people, and that's a normal thing that people should want to do. It's just a self-report. Yeah, Rusty's like, we need to focus on basics first. How to get housing and healthcare before Mars. Let's get the Earth right first. And the idea that we're going to house people on Mars without housing people on Earth, like, it's so dumb. Like, it's not going to work. Isaac says a disabled man who's on disability is being made to pay back the COVID-19 benefits he applied. Yeah, fucking... It's a barbarian system, man. It's a barbarian system. Like, we got to stop trusting anything that has anything to do with this capitalist system. Like, they'll never not be evil. Like, it's just, they have to be. There's something inside of the system that insists, what's the most evil thing to do? There's no real way to organize the left. I keep getting death threats from people who aren't anarchist. Dude, if people are giving you death threats, they're not on the left. Like, for real. Like, what the hell is that? Like, that's ridiculous. I don't want to work with people who want me dead. Yeah, obviously. That's crazy. Please show poster if you can. What poster are you talking about? Sorry. Oh, that fella. I don't remember where that was. I don't remember where that was. Oh, probably shouldn't show that. For those of you on TikTok, just look up Falun Gong. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Where is that anemone? Tell me where that is. I'll definitely put that up. Resources. Thank you. Toronto organizing? There we go. Let's do it. Boink. International Workers' Day, 2023, Sunday, April 30th, 1 p.m. Nathan Phillips Square. March on Queen's Park. Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm not going to be able to attend because of capitalism. because of work. That's how it is. Yeah, it's human nature to raid like Vikings, exactly. Like, what's the problem? There's a PBS Spacetime episode titled "Could We Terraform Mars?" which could completely deflate any hopes you might have about humans living on Mars. Yeah, I love the idea that people are walking around saying we're going to terraform Mars while we're, like, de-terraforming Earth. You know? Like, we're basically making Earth uninhabitable for human life while saying that we could terraform Mars to make it habitable for human life. Like, it's so embarrassing. Like, I genuinely hope that Elon Musk and a bunch of these deluded, detached billionaire types actually do shoot themselves at Mars. I think it would be just a perfect way for these people to end their lives. Just in this absolutely... I look at these guys and I don't see anything too much different than, like, the end of days cultists, the Christian cultists, right? Jesus is coming back at any time. Global warming is actually God's will, and Jesus will come back and separate everybody. And it's the same kind of mindset. They're like, oh yeah, we're gonna get to Mars and we're gonna land on, like, and for what? Who cares? Like, for real, who cares? Who cares if you actually do it? That's the part about it that I think is actually really, like, it's very obvious that these people have not thought this through. Like, if you take a look at basic history, you know what's going to happen? You're going to land on Mars, and even if you're successful, well, those people are not going to, like, listen to what Earth has to say. They're going to create their own society, and they're going to build their own structures, and they're going to do what they think is right for themselves. It's just this weird... We've got a very weird way of thinking about things when we're actually celebrating this idea of, like, let's get to... And it's all being done so they can weaponize space anyway. Like, that's what it's actually all about. Like, I'm not going to believe for a minute that, like, maybe Elon is so detached and deluded that he actually thinks that this Mars thing is what it's all about. But it's about weaponizing space. That's what it's about. It's about getting, like, death lasers into space. It's about making it so that they can shoot rockets at the moon if they have to, right? Like, this is exactly how America thinks about everything. So it doesn't care about building something or growing something or creating something that benefits anybody, right? It's all just like, how can we shoot rockets at stuff the best? Because that's exactly what America is. It's exactly who they are. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, it is the system. Inflation right now is greedflation. Yeah, like, it's just corporations jacking prices. Like, there's no mystery to this anymore. Right? There's no mystery to this anymore. Like, people talk about inflation as if it's like people talk about inflation as if it's like a natural, it's just the passing of the river through the stream. They talk about it as if it's just this natural thing. It's literally just corporations jacking prices. That's all it is. And to pretend like it's anything else is to just be an apologist for some of the darkest, most bleak people who live on the planet today. Just like, we should absolutely plunge people into desperation and poverty so that we can have higher numbers on a screen. You're not even improving the quality of life. Like, a guy like Galen Weston isn't having his quality of life improved by jacking prices on people. Like, he's not getting more stuff. Like, he's waking up in the same bed, in the same mansion, with the same cars and all the same assets and all the same stuff, right? It literally is just numbers on a screen at this point. Like, it's a game for these people. And it's how detached and psychotic the capitalist class has become. And which is why I have no sympathy for them whatsoever. Like, when I see kids, like 1,000 kids just wipe out a Walmart in Chicago, I'm like, great. Like, great. I have no sympathy for these people whatsoever. And I think that the people who defend them are ridiculous. Like, just like child-brained, ridiculous people. Like, how could you possibly defend these indefensible monsters? Unless you genuinely believe that they're the job creators. Which is just like, whoa, bro. Like, really? You actually think that these worthless parasites who are withholding food and shelter from everyone. Like, when you watch Star Wars, do you find yourself rooting for the Empire? right? Do you find yourself looking at Darth Vader or Emperor Palpatine and going like, those are the good guys. Luke Skywalker just needed to follow the laws. You know, he just needed to do better and follow the laws better. Like when you watch a Robin Hood movie, do you find yourself thinking that, no, the sheriff's got a real point, you know, like he's allowed to raise taxes however he feels, because, you know, he's the law, and Robin Hood just needed to follow the law, and everything would have been fine. It's this kind of mindset that exists in the society right now that I just don't, like, are we 12? Like, are we 12? Yeah, put a colony on Mars that will rebel against Earth. Instant war you can fund. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Yeah, you think the U.S. is going to build something on Mars when all the bridges are collapsing, sewage pipes bursting, trains derailing? Yeah, that's exactly right, Isaac. Like, what possible evidence do we have to show that America is capable of building something on Mars? Like, maybe they'll hit it with a rocket, right? Maybe there'll be a moment when some people or some robots pull some stuff out and start building something, but it'll fail immediately, right? What evidence do we have that America's capable of building something that lasts? Like, and they're not capable of building structures that last in an ecosystem that was built for them. That literally has like breathable air and clean water and food and all of the kind of stuff. Everything we possibly need, all the resources like right at our fingertips. And what are we doing? We're destroying it as fast as we possibly can. And so what? We're going to put that into space. We're going to go to a dead rock where there's no resources, where we have no infrastructure, where there's anything, and we're going to be successful while we're failing so badly here on Earth? Get the fuck right out of here. Like, it's so dumb. Like, I just don't, like, these Elon stands are so embarrassing. It's just like, how can we consider ourselves serious people? I just find myself thinking over and over and over again when I'm listening to our leadership, when I listen to Justin Trudeau, when I listen to Pierre Poilievre, when I listen to Elon Musk, when I listen to Joe Biden, when I listen to Donald Trump, DeSantis, I just find myself thinking, like, the West deserves its collapse. Like, we really do. We deserve everything that's coming for us. And because we could just not do any of this shit. We could just literally not do any of this shit. Yeah, pretty sure NASA can't even afford its own rocket system. Yeah, because they defunded it. Like, they took the money they were putting into NASA and they gave it to some worthless billionaire. What can this is from Fiery Onion. Good, well, hey man, good to see you. This is a beautiful question right off the bat, bud. What can I do as an owner of a rural garbage collecting business to help the movement? Because you're living in a rural environment, Onion, you are going to be more protected, might be the word to use, right? You're going to be more insulated, not insulated, that's not the right way. But my advice to you is to get seriously connected to collective movements locally. That abandon in your mindset this privatization, private ownership mindset that exists. Start taking more seriously the idea of collective ownership and collective endeavors. That here's a real good one that I think a lot of rural people don't really take seriously, that I think that they should. Support mass transit. Support the idea that you should have a bus going around the rural area that you live in. Support and I know this sounds real simple, but we are in this kind of position where we are building like real simple things and real simple endeavors, right? We are in our lifetime going to experience the decline of fossil fuels. It is getting more and more obvious that we are not going to have the infrastructure in place, the electric vehicle infrastructure in place, to be able to just jump from one point to another. We are going to have to accept a decline in convenience. And one of the ways that we can accept a decline in convenience, especially in rural environments, is to argue and defend and fight for and push for and execute on mass transit ideas. There is not a single, that I know of, rural town or rural environment that just has a bus going around it, right? So everybody has to have a car. I'm sure you do, right? You've got a car, and you can't imagine living in an environment without a car, right? Why is that? Because if someone took your car away, you would be stranded, right? Because there is no mass transit whatsoever. And what's so funny about this is that I actually think that most rural environments, it would be easy to put some kind of mass transit system in place that would be extremely beneficial to the vast majority of people. And so those are the sorts of ideas that you should be moving towards. You should be trying to delete from your mindset this, and it's tough. I'm not trying to tell you it's easy, dude, because we're bombarded constantly by propaganda that is gaslighting us to convince us that it's all you. It's hyper-individualism, right? If you can't solve your problem, you're a failure. And you just need to work harder to solve your problem. Well, that's a dumb way to build a society, right? You literally cannot build a society that way. That we need to be pushing forward and arguing for collective solutions to collective problems that collectively exist. And we need to banish from our thinking the idea that there is no such thing as a collective problem that can be solved collectively. Of course there are collective problems, right? Like imagine believing that there are not collective problems. Well, that's exactly what we're supposed to believe in this system, and that's exactly where the system of gaslighting has taken us. And so for yourself, as the owner of a rural garbage collecting business, maybe use your position in your community in order to try to find collective solutions to collective problems that exist. That if you're a business owner in a rural environment, then that puts you in a position of status within your community without a doubt, and people will listen to what you have to say. And you should be arguing in favor of mass transit's a good one, but real easy stuff like I always believed when I was living in a small community. I grew up in a small community myself. I always believed that we should be paying people to just beautify the town. That we should literally be creating grants, and not expensive grants, like not $1 billion or something, or not $1 million or nothing like that. Just a couple $1,000, right? That allows people to make decisions in your community to make it a better looking place, to make it a prettier place, create some jobs, for God's sakes, to make the environment around you richer and better. And there are all kinds of things like that that definitely exist within your environment. But if everybody just gets caught in this idea of, no, you need to grind set your hyper individualism, you just need to grind away on that, well, then you're never going to achieve any of this. So that would be the thing I would focus on. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy, simply because we are inundated almost daily. No, I shouldn't even say almost daily, like daily. We are inundated with high-level, well-funded, well-articulated propagandists whose only endeavor is to convince you that you have been abandoned and you're on your own and it's your own fault if you fail. Well, it's not true. And in fact, the more you think on it, the more you realize how ridiculous that statement is. That of course you're not alone. Like, of course you're not by yourself. And of course the systems that you live in matter far more than any endeavor and any effort that you could put in. But certainly your own effort does matter to the degree that it matters. But what matters more is the environment with which you are working and operating within. right? Like, if you throw someone into the middle of the ocean and then scoff when they drown, you're probably a Nazi, right? Like that, and that's basically what we're doing these days. Cotton says, so about that article, we're talking about the Caitlin Johnstone article, which I would like to get to. Consider the fact that the Department of Justice rather, does a specific thing while letting people like Tucker, Walsh, Libs of TikTok, and Shapiro walk free. Yeah, it's real interesting, isn't it? It's real interesting how like far right, like Matt Walsh is the easiest one to talk to, right? To talk about. Because Matt Walsh calls himself a theocratic fascist. It's on his Twitter feed. If you go to Twitter and look up Matt Walsh, you'll see that he calls himself a theocratic fascist, right? Like, and he's just allowed to say whatever he likes and do whatever he wants and attack whoever he likes. But if you say, hey, maybe everyone should have food and shelter, well, then you're going to get banned, right? That's how this works. Yeah, our public infrastructure is literally on fire, yeah. Transit access is a human right. In sociology, there's a theory exactly about that. Personal issue versus collective problems. Well, and the reason why it's so... the reason why the personal narrative argument is so effective, right? The reason why the personal argument is so effective is because it is true to the degree that it is true, right? Like... yes, you do need to get out of bed and you do need to do that work. Yes, that's absolutely true. But it's beside the point, right? Like that it is a type of gaslighting because it's beside the point. Like we're standing up saying, "Hey, we should put in a structure that actually makes our lives easy." And their response is, "No, you just need to grind set." It's like, but that has nothing to do with it. Like, we can't, unless we all get together and decide to actually alter the system for the benefit of everyone, which I think Onion is pointing out, right? I agree with those ideas. It's very hard to convince others around me, right? Because everyone has been convinced that this is the best that we can do, when it's obviously false, observably false, that any problem that exists in your life is just a you problem. And the reality is that things are just going to get more and more obvious. Like the decline of fossil fuels is serious. It's going to get very obvious very quickly to everyone who has even the most basic connection to reality at all. So a small minority of the society, in truth, that we are going to need to come up with solutions that just go beyond go buy a car. Because the fuel that you're going to use to power those cars are going to be so expensive that no one's going to be able to afford it. And it's going to be so expensive that the fossil fuel industry itself won't bother dredging it up anymore because it's no longer profitable for them to actually get it in order to turn around and sell. And when we get into that period of time, and that's going to come a lot sooner than you think, right? That's not going to be that far out, right? The idea that, oh, we've got hundreds of years, and all says, no, probably not. Like probably not. And so we should start discussing and start communicating and start coming to terms with the idea that we should come up with solutions now. We should come up with these ideas now. And in a lot of cases, the solution is just stop doing the thing. But for a lot of, especially rural people, they view their vehicle, as freedom. They view their vehicle as a part of their identity. That's why it's a car culture, right? But we're attempting to move the needle, so that's what we've got to do. Yep. Isaac, China has built a massive transportation infrastructure and using all kinds of energy it can. Yeah, we don't do anything like that in here. Yeah, and this is a really good comment to make in this conversation because it's the reason we're falling behind. Good opportunity to say like, share, subscribe, guys. Hit the bells, hit the whistles. If you have $1 in your pocket, think about donating it. I've got a Patreon in the description. Please consider joining. If you donate $1, you get into the Discord. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it. Like, we are going to fall behind very quickly, very, very, very quickly, because we refuse. And at this point, it's got to be called a refusal. We refuse to do anything for the benefit of a collective. We refuse to do anything to like building transportation infrastructure is so basic, like it's so basic, and we just refuse to do it. And cultures and societies and civilizations that actually are doing it are going to rocket forward, and they're going to make us look like chumps. They're going to make us look like chumps. Like, and it's very obvious that the solution to this problem from the West's perspective is to just keep bombing. That's really the solution that we're coming up with. That we actually think that what we're going to do is bomb our way out of this problem. And it's a fool's game. It's so foolish. Like, it's delusional to a degree that can't even be discussed and can't even be articulated properly, because the rest of the world can build faster than we can bomb, and we're going to fall behind in a way that's so dramatic and so absurd that when the negative consequences begin to hit the average citizen and begin to hit the average person, they're not going to know what to do. They're not going to know what's happening. And the system, the capitalist system, is going to try to turn that energy against minority groups, as we're seeing all throughout the United States, with the attack against trans people that we're seeing. Which that will eventually turn against some other minority group. Like, it is an inevitability, and just constantly funneling that energy away from the true villains of the piece, which is the ownership class, towards minority groups, some kind of culture war issue, right? Get people caught up on things that don't matter to their lives at all, and it won't be until people are being thrown out onto the streets that finally the average citizen will be like, something's got to be done about this. But it's going to happen so swiftly and be so ridiculous that the people who are currently in power are going to make a bunch of very dumb decisions very quickly, and we're all just going to watch them do it. And we're going to pay for it. We're going to pay for it pretty badly. Generation Y Me, good to see you, bud. Radio Halifax, good to see you. I don't think I said hello. Via Rail doesn't even have end-to-end service across Canada. So sad. You get dropped at friggin' Long Lac and can pick up again in somewhere like Winnipeg. Yeah, it's like 12-hour gap. Yeah. To me, this is what is the hallmark of the breakdown of Western civilization. Like, we refuse to invest in unifying projects. And so there's nothing unifying us anymore. Like, there's nothing even that's capturing our imagination outside of, like, Elon Musk being like, we're going to get to Mars. This, like, unserious, dumb bullshit idea. When like, we don't have rail anymore. We don't have a bus system anymore. We don't, like, and it is going to get that, like, flights are not going to be able to do it anymore, because everything's going to get so much more expensive so quickly. Right? It's the speed by which these things happen, I think, that is going to really make people's heads spin. That we're going to hit a breaking point. And the capitalists will do what capitalists do, which is abandon us. Radio says, I tried to set up a rural bus service here in Nova Scotia 20 years ago. The insurance was a killer. Yeah, because you didn't have political support, right? Like, Your politicians were working for the insurance company. That's what it was. Yeah, same around here. I've been thinking we need to do something about that. I don't know what or how. Truckers are nuts, though. Well, you need to be, honestly, dude, like, I say this with all the love in my heart to truckers. I grew up around truckers. I've spoken to a lot of trucker types. And you're right, they are nuts. Because you got to kind of be a little bit nuts to do that job. Like, think about what that job actually is. Like, really think about what that job actually is. And you realize pretty quickly that, like, yeah, you gotta be a special type of person. Like, maybe let's not say nuts, but you gotta be a little bit outside of what, like, you gotta kind of be an antisocial person to begin with. You kind of need to be okay with, well, not kind of, you gotta be okay with not being around people for long stretches of time. You gotta be okay with just like your job is basically follow a line, right? Like, that's basically what your job is, and you gotta just be okay with it. And so you're dealing with a lot of guys who spend a lot of time alone and just kind of living in their own thoughts and living in their own world. And then they interact with you, right? And you've been living in the world, right? Or at least whatever semblance of the world that you exist in. And they don't know what you're talking about, because they literally don't know what you're talking about. And you don't know what they're talking about. Literally. So you both kind of miss each other in the dark, and they have their own ideas, and they don't really know how to articulate their ideas because they've only ever really talked to themselves. And but you'll find that there's a type of there's something to these guys. There's something to these guys. They're an odd breed, but I don't hate them. Just me, says Epic Beard Comrade. You have a nest of rare birds in there. Yes, I could. Here, do I have? Yeah, here we go. Just for fun, just so everybody can see it. Yeah, that's your classic number 2 pencil. Can I make it disappear entirely? Yeah, almost. Yeah, I think the laws around winter weather licenses, yeah, maybe some laws to increase training need to become one would help. Oh, speaking of that, let's talk very briefly about my favorite thing that I've heard. Doug Ford says the government will introduce new legislation that would eliminate the post-secondary education requirement to become a police officer, as province tries to create a pipeline to police officers. So can't wait until the police officers around us have a high school education. That's going to be super good. Here's how you build a civil society that makes sense, right? Let's make sure that the people with the guns on their hips have less education. Yeah, that'll do it. Community-based safety solutions would probably be a good way to build goodwill between the left and the normies. Yeah. We'll be okay, John. It only takes 2 million years for a gallon of oil to form. Yeah. Truckers drive real irresponsibly. Like, there are accidents way too often near my city. I mean, is it that the truckers are driving irresponsibly, or is it that the requirements that are being put on the drivers are too much? Right? Like most of these truckers are getting paid by the mile, and most of them are being given routes that are like, okay, you got to drive 16 hours in a day. Like, there's a lot of that's going on. There's a reason why there's what's called a trucker shortage, because we've crossed that threshold of the pay's not worth the risk, and the jobs, they're asking too much of these guys. There's a real great documentary that I watched about the chain, the line, or the transportation chain between China and America. And the entire time I was watching it, I was like, oh, this is just like a line of exploitation. This is just a system of exploitation every step of the way. And so, yep. Of course there needs to be more done for them to stay safe and keep others safe, of course. But we live in a system of extraction and abandonment. We live in a system of extraction and abandonment. That this is the thing that we don't accept. And I don't hear anybody else saying. And I'm going to keep saying it until I start hearing a lot more serious people, people who are better positioned than I am, to start saying out loud, without shame, as if it is a fact, because it is a fact, this is a system of extraction and abandonment. That the capitalists are extracting all of the surplus value they can get, and the second they can't do that, they abandon us. It's a system of extraction and abandonment. And that's true everywhere. And so when you see it in the truckers, and Amaze Brain, good to see you, bud, says, I used to work in transportation as logistics coordinator and dispatch. The trucking industry is more concerned with profit than the safety and well-being of the drivers and others on the road. It's fundamentally the truth. And it's the truth everywhere. That's why we're having all these derailments across America. That's why we're having giant oil spills. That's why we have like a fucking hellgate open up in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. It's why after disaster after disaster, because it's all built into the profits of the bottom line. They don't give a shit. They don't care. They don't care at all. And I'm sure a lot of truckers use meth. I'm sure of it. I don't, you're going to find if you talk to me about drugs and drug use, I have no judgments for anyone. If you're using any kind of drug, like I theoretically personally wish that you would stop, but I'm not going to judge you for it. Because this world is being run by a psychopath class. We're throwing people into a meat grinder that's actively extracting everything it can from them before they abandon everybody. And if you need to do anything you need to do to make it through to the next day, then you do you. And you got to do it. It's as simple as that. And if we were genuine, we're not, of course, but if we were genuine about our concern about people using these drugs, then we would improve the quality of life for people. But we're not genuine. It's often just said so that we can dismiss people. It's just another method to discard people. That's all it is. Yeah, it's the only way they can stay awake to make the deadlines, of course. Yeah, capitalism produces the despair that leads to meth, for sure. Oh, thoughts on Tucker and Lemon getting fired? I mean, Don Lemon was it Don Lemon that got fired? I don't know anything about Lemon, and I think most people are of the opinion that it's just he's old, or that he's just no longer like who cares, right? But Tucker is like if you actually look at some of the information that came out in that lawsuit, like Tucker Carlson was outright saying that he didn't care what was true or false. And so there was a Dominion settlement, a settlement with Dominion election machines, where Tucker Carlson was saying on his show that Dominion was rigging elections with their election machines. And so Dominion sues Fox, and instead of taking it to court and doing a thing, they had a settlement. The settlement's something like $700 million, so like almost $1 billion settlement. And it really does come down to the fact that Tucker Carlson was saying outright in emails and in texts that you can find that he didn't care what was real or false. He wasn't there to report on what was real or false. He was there to get ratings. That's what Tucker Carlson has been chasing this whole time, and he has been achieving, right? It's just ratings. And how do you get good ratings? You tell people what they want to hear, right? You stir up hysteria. You create moral panics, right? This is basically what the right has always done and has been doing in the modern era. This is what Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, Matt Walsh, Jordan Peterson, Tucker Carlson, is what they all do. They create moral panics to feed on the fear and the latent xenophobia and bigotry that people have in order to whip that up and get people to keep watching. Because people who are in a state of panic are going to constantly be tuning in to see if that panic can be alleviated somehow or to learn something more about it. It's just preying on people. It's predatory behavior. And Tucker Carlson is an expert at it. And now he's parted ways with Fox, whether he was fired or whether he decided to leave or all that kind of stuff. That's I don't give a shit either way. And he's going to just start his own media network, and he's going to take that fan base, he's going to take those people who are listening to his show, and he's going to continue to pump them full of conspiracy theories and all kinds of nonsense, right? Tucker Carlson's going to start a podcast, and he's going to have this like great podcast where he's just going to create like a huge conspiracy base, right? Because that's basically what he was already doing. It's just, the next time some kind of ridiculous lawsuit or something like this happens, he's going to, it's not going to be Fox's problem. Tucker's the only person on mainstream media who had anti-war voices on. Yeah, that is true. Like, that is true. Mr. Moon. I picture Tucker going on the Daily Wire. Yeah, that's possible. Completely possible. Like, but just me. Let me be real clear about something when I say this, because people will often say of Tucker Carlson that, oh, he had these anti-war voices on, and so, well, you got to give him credit for that. Tucker Carlson cares about one thing and one thing only: ratings. That's all he cares about. And Tucker was looking out into the media landscape and saying, hey, here's a huge amount of people who are anti-war that aren't being talked to, so I'm going to talk to them. And it's not Tucker Carlson standing there being like, we got to get more anti-war voices on, and we got to spread this message, and we got to, like, Tucker doesn't have a moral base. Like, he's not a moral person, right? He cares about wealth, money, power, prestige for himself, period. Bottom line. Full stop. He doesn't actually have a conscience. He doesn't actually have, like, a moral foundation upon which to stand. Like if it would have made him a whole bunch of money to stand up and say, we gotta make sure that there's all these people who are being housed. We gotta make sure that all these homeless people need to get housed. Then he would do it. It's pretty straightforward shit. Like, so I don't think we should give Tucker any credit whatsoever for anything he says or does, right? Like, it just so happens that he sees money and value in putting forward that message for himself. That's all. Yeah, he will go solo. Yeah, I find it strange they didn't want to recoup costs with Tucker, but it is what it is. I bet you that they really came to a head on it because I think Carlson was just not going to stop. I think that's really what it comes down to, is that Tucker was, like, unapologetic about it and was just like, no, I'm going to do that. Like, if you want me to be on your channel and your network and you want that and you want ratings, like, if you want the ratings, like, Tucker Carlson's the #1 show right now, right? Like, that's how pathetic the discourse has gotten, that Tucker Carlson's the #1 show, right? Like, we live in a very pathetic, ridiculous culture that the #1 show on network television and network news is Tucker Carlson, right? But really accept it and understand that that's how low we are. That's how sad and pathetic we are as a people. And he was just standing there saying, no, I want the ratings. I want to be the #1. And Rupert Murdoch was like, you fucking just cost me $1 billion. Get out of here. I think it was that serious. I think it was that straightforward. Sounds like all of man commercial media, MSN. Yeah. Money hungry Swanson boy. I don't think it's money, right? I actually don't think it's money. I know I've said money a couple times, but I don't actually think it is money. I think it's just prestige. I just think it is like, I'm the me best, me good. Like, it's not much more than that. It didn't get ratings, or other stations and other hosts on Fox would have anti-war voices on. Glenn Greenwald did a good piece on it. Yeah. I do know that Tucker Carlson has recently said that he wishes he hadn't have been a pro-Iraq war. Wouldn't that be crazy? Like, wouldn't it actually be crazy if suddenly Tucker Carlson, as he got into his old age, actually grew, like, a moral conscience? Wouldn't it be actually crazy if, as he got older and as he got into his, like, 60s and 70s, he actually did start saying things like, man, we actually do need to take care of the poor. Like, this money thing's getting out of control. Like, we got to actually look to what's going on in our own society. We got to stop these wars. Like, wouldn't that be wild? Wouldn't it be absolutely wild that this, like, absolute simp and sycophant for capital, if he had his, like, road to Damascus moment, and he really realized that, like, what we're doing is wrong and we need to do better, right? That would be crazy. That would be like absolutely crazy, man. But I'd be here for it. If it actually happened, I would be like, because I've always said this about a lot of these right-wing guys. I think some of these right-wing guys are just like one interesting events away from like turning a corner and being like Peterson. Like Peterson could suddenly be like, we gotta start giving money to the poor. Like we gotta start taking care of the poor and the vulnerable in this society, or this whole thing's gonna come apart. You know, it could happen, and it'd be wild. It'd be wild. I think Peterson's probably too far gone now. Like he's I think he's actually schizophrenic. So it's possible if he isn't a narcissist. Yeah, well, I mean, he's so rich. Like, he was born a millionaire. Like, this is a big problem with a lot of these guys. That they were just born into this position. They're just born into this position of wealth. So it's just, like, completely... it's completely... There's an entire way of living that the majority of people are actually experiencing that they're just completely disconnected from, right? They just don't understand what it is to live in the world in like a very serious way. Like they don't know what it means to need that paycheck. They don't know what it means to like be right on the line of not being able to pay your rent. Like, these guys have never missed a meal. Like, that to me is like the basic foundation of why they're frauds. Is that they've never once lived in the world and they think that they are masters of the world. That they've never been hungry. They've never missed a meal. They've certainly never missed 3 meals in a row. Right? They've never even had the threat of homelessness levied at them. They've never really experienced being dominated by a landlord or dominated by a boss. Like, not in any way that is meaningful or tangible, right? That like, sure, like Tucker gets fired. He's a multimillionaire. He fucking owns like a cattle ranch or something, right? Like it doesn't matter to him. Like the great punishment for a guy like Tucker Carlson is that he just retires early and isn't on TV anymore. Like, he's not scared that he's going to be kicked into the streets. He's not scared that he's not going to have a meal, right? He doesn't have to choose between having electricity and feeding his children, right? Like none of that is real for any of these guys. Because and yet they think that they're masters of the world, but they don't live in the world. And they don't exist in the world. That they exist on this tier of reality that has essentially been built for them by the people they despise. That the working class ensures that these people can exist, and the working class are considered despicable and beneath them. That we all just need to work harder when they've been born into positions of massive wealth in the first place. It's just crazy. It's just this crazy system. And so a guy like Tucker Carlson, like, is Tucker Carlson a narcissist? No, but he lives in a narcissistic system that rewards him every time he acts like a narcissist, right? So if the system is narcissistic and rewards you for acting like a narcissist, then you don't need to be a narcissist in order to act like one, because you're rewarded for doing so by a system that's designed to be a narcissist. But it's your own individualism that matters, guys. The system doesn't matter. We don't need to discuss it. Amazebrain says, if he did that in regards to Peterson, then the right would totally obliterate his reputation and tell their base he's gone woke. Yeah, probably. Like, that's just it. Like, woke is the new buzzword, right? And there was a bit, a piece on the Daily Show where they finally just said what I've been saying for a while, which is like, just say black. Just say black, guys. Like, come on. Like, that the right basically found a code. They found a way to be able to say black or black culture or any of this kind of stuff without saying black, and that's woke. And if you listen to these speeches, you listen to this stuff, you read any of these articles that anybody writes about this word woke and just replace it with the word black, you're like, oh, yeah, these guys are fucking white supremacists. Like, these guys are white supremacists for sure. For sure. Because it's all just a code. It's all just a code. Yeah, or LGBTQ, yeah. Narcissists are okay as long as they don't think they're better than me, because that's impossible. That's great, grinning. That's great. We got a real winner on TikTok. Lazy people never fail to amuse me, especially the ones who rep SpongeBob in their early 40s. Yeah, why be playful and have fun, right? Why be lovely and try to be nice and try to say nice things to people, right? Why attempt to make people smile or laugh? Why have joy or love or compassion or empathy, right? Why have any of those things, Mitch? Right? And lazy people, you have no idea who I am. You don't know what my job is. You don't know what I do. You don't know anything about me. So I don't know why you have such hatred in your heart for somebody you don't know. And I don't know why you thought that saying this was going to make anybody think better of you. But I hope you do better in your life, bud, and I hope you learn how to love. So, let's take a look at this Caitlin Johnstone piece. Biden Department of Justice indicts 4 Americans for weaponized free speech. The Biden administration's Department of Justice has just charged 4 members of the African People's Socialist Party for conspiring to act as agents of Russia by using speech and political action in ways the Department of Justice says weaponize the First Amendment rights of Americans. Federal authorities charged 4 Americans on Tuesday with roles in a malign campaign pushing pro-Kremlin propaganda in Florida and Missouri, expanding a previous case that charged a Russian operative with running illegal influence agents within the United States. Is this gonna be just like, is this gonna be like Russiagate shit? I fucking cannot take this Russiagate shit. When they claim the members of APSP published propaganda and promoted dissension, what they really mean is that they engaged in speech and political activism that the U.S. government does not like. Yeah, the spin masters will try to spin it, the legal mumbo-jumbo will try to obfuscate it, but that's what's happening. Don't let them conceal this from you. They're not worried about Russian propaganda. They're worried you'll stop listening to U.S. propaganda. Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to read this whole piece, dude. I have like a throbbing, like, just like in my head right now. So it's just like, but yeah, like the Russiagate shit is just embarrassing. It's just absolutely embarrassing. You know things have gotten bad for the right when you got a guy called Bugatti Boy, good to see you by the way, bud, saying fuck hustle culture. People in Toronto pretend they are so busy. Yeah. Like, well, people are busy. They're just busy doing nothing that matters, right? Like, that's the thing that's so insane about this culture. That we're all just grind setting ourselves into oblivion. For nothing. For nothing at all. We got a guy saying, if chronically online was a person. I don't know why people think that they should be taken seriously saying this kind of stuff. You don't know who I am. You don't know anything about me. Like, it's just an all you're doing is embarrassing yourself. Like, it's just weird. I actually was talking to one of my coworkers the other day, and we were just making fun of this whole idea of the hustle culture and the grind set culture, that it's all just like, just grind set harder, bro, just grind set harder. And really all you're doing is just making more money for someone else. Like, your wage doesn't go up if you grind harder. Like, you're not gonna make more money. They're not gonna notice you and give you the promotion. And if they do give you the promotion, they'll probably just lay you off after, right? Because it's more, it makes them an extra penny a day to eliminate your position or something, right? Like, this is what it is. And so we've created this idea on this culture that if you want to get ahead, you got to grind set, you got to focus, you got to grind set, but there's no reward for it. You can't afford a house, you can't afford a car, you can't get anywhere, do anything. Like, yeah, grind into an early grave, exactly. Make more money for your boss. In what? The vain hope that they'll actually notice? I mean, it's just ridiculous. Oh, it's just ridiculous. God damn. This headache is killing me, man. And, like... Bugatti Boy is more of just an alias. I'm not right at all. Yeah, I understand, bud. I understand. I just think it's funny. That's all. This Russiagate stuff... Like, this Russiagate stuff is so... Like, you've got to be completely bought in to the idea that the United States empire has credibility or validity to actually take it at all seriously for a moment. That no one has interfered more in people's elections than the United States. Nobody interferes more than any other nation than the United States. Like, go talk to the people of South America, of the Middle East, of Africa, of Southeast Asia, right? Go of Eastern Europe. Go talk to these people and ask them if they think that the Americans are interfering in their elections or not. As the Americans, like, actively pursue open coups against the governments over and over and over and over again. And yet I'm supposed to, even feel sympathetic if Russia attempted to do the same? Like, this is the thing I find so funny about the conversation, is that, like, one of the things that I like to do when I talk to people, and it's especially effective to do this against Nazis. So most people on the right, you just concede their point, that they'll be arguing till they're blue in the face about something, but instead of trying to, like, refute their point, you just accept their point and then say, so what? And what you'll find most of the time is that the point that they're trying to make is irrelevant, that it doesn't matter at all. They're just trying to waste your time and trying to get you hyper-focused on some sort of issue that doesn't actually matter at all. And so I just cut to the chase. I just say, okay, well, if you're right, so what? Like, who cares? What's it matter? Like the fascist Matt Walsh, right? He's constantly talking about how there's like 10 people. We found a trans pedophile, and so that means that all trans people are bad. It's like the most ridiculous bullshit argument you've ever heard, but these are the arguments that they make. And you just say, okay, so you found a trans pedophile. Okay, so what? Right? So if we have a straight pedophile, does that mean we should ban straight people? Like, it's just the most ridiculous bullshit you've ever heard in your life. And I feel very much the same way about this Russiagate stuff. Like, yeah, so what if Russia was interfering in the American election? Like, oh, they got a taste of their own medicine, I guess? So what? Like, I'm supposed to feel sympathetic? I'm supposed to be like, oh, Russia! I don't care. Like, I don't have any reason to care about what people do to America and the American empire. Seems like the American empire deserves it. Seems like they've well earned, if you ask me. Like, I don't have any reason to feel sympathy towards the capitalist death cult or to get angry at people who fight back against them. So if you even showed evidence that it was happening, I'd probably just shrug and be like, yeah, well, you deserve it. So Compton says, the one issue I have the most with the Democrat Russiagate shit is that they pretend like these social divisions weren't real until Russia trolled Americans against Americans. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's the method by which the Democratic Party is refusing to commit to any kind of meaningful self-analysis. That any rational group of people with even the most basic compassion or empathy in their heart would have acknowledged, after losing an election to a game show host like Donald Trump, would have gone, whoa, 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 whoa. What is going on with us? What is actually going on with us? How can we possibly lose to this guy? How did that happen at all? And instead of taking a moment and actually asking that question seriously, doing serious critical self-analysis, having serious internal discussions and internal debates, and having a real genuine conversation about how is it possible that the Democrats lost to a fucking game show host. Instead of that, they just pursued this path of total delusion. Just this complete, absolute deflectionary, it's the Russians' fault. Russia did it. That's what happened. Russia. Yeah, it was just Russia. We the Democratic Party, are a perfect party that should never have lost. If the Russians hadn't gotten involved, we would have won for sure. Right? So instead of actually doing anything meaningful or having any kind of critical analysis or like asking themselves, how did we alienate people to the degree that they're willing to actually elect a game show host instead of former State Department, former head of the State Department, Hillary Clinton, like instead of actually asking serious questions, no, it's all Russia's fault. Like it's just how losers act. It's just the most banal bullshit of life, right? And it to me it is indicative of how the entire Western world is collapsing. That instead of actually taking serious the real problems that are right in front of us, instead of actually doing that, it's all gaslighting, right? It's all gaslighting. That you can't have a genuine conversation about the nature of the system and how the system is actually failing and how maybe we should take seriously the idea of even reforming the system, right? We can't have that genuine question. It's got to be that oh, you're wearing a SpongeBob shirt. Like that's really what the conversation has become. That, oh, this guy's wearing a SpongeBob shirt, so I don't need to take him seriously. Oh, you think the Russians have something interesting to say, so I don't need to take you seriously. You're just lazy. You're not working hard enough, so I don't need to take you seriously. It's just embarrassing. It's just completely embarrassing. And so we deserve the collapses. Like, if we're not going to actually discuss the looming collapse, if we're not actually going to discuss what's happening in a serious way as adults, and instead just do this childish deflecting, then we deserve it. We absolutely deserve what's coming. Ligand Disease says, I love how this culture has turned a word that implies being overworked into something considered cool. Yeah, exactly. We got a new fella in here, Rispa. Good to see you, bud. Isn't socialism better? So from the communist perspective, Rispa, socialism is the journey towards communism. That it's a spectrum, right? It's not a firm like capitalism, communism. It's a spectrum, right? And that in between the two is socialism. And if you are reaching towards communism, then you are doing socialism. And if you are reaching towards capitalism, you're regressing from socialism. That's more or less the communist perspective and the communist position, which is why I don't hate people who call themselves socialists. But my warning to people who call themselves socialists is that if you're not reaching away from capitalism towards something, towards an idea, you will always regress back to capitalism. Always. And if all you're going to do is pretend as though communism is a deeply flawed system or it's never worked or it has all this kind of stuff, if you're just going to pretend like that's real, then you're just going to hand your society back over to the capitalists every single time, which is basically what we're seeing happening here in Canada as we're attempting to privatize all of our previously socialized systems. And it's because we have this odd demonization of a system that's worked every time it's been tried, that's been a major benefit to everyone. But we are the most propagandized people on Earth by a mile. That people who live in the West think the world operates one way and it operates in a completely different way. But we've just been so heavily propagandized that we can't see it. The gaslighting is real. Like, it's real. If you vote for someone that is not in favor of the U.S. in Latin America, they coup them, yeah? They would say the elections were rigged. Yeah, this is what they've been saying about Venezuela, yeah? People can't accept Hillary was a flawed candidate. I mean, every candidate is a flawed candidate because every candidate is a human. It's the dishonesty. Like, it's the dishonesty about it that I think people really hated and really still do hate. Like, Hillary Clinton like absolutely destroyed Libya, and her husband Bill Clinton was responsible for the decimation of the welfare system in America. Like, no one spiked poverty more than Bill Clinton. And then you're going to turn around and be like, and here's his wife? Nah. Like, there's no, to me, there's no mystery about this. Like, this idea that oh, people didn't vote for Hillary because they're sexist, or oh, there's the racism and all this kind of stuff. It's like, nah, I would never vote for the wife of the man who made my children live in poverty. Never. I would never do that. And so it's just like, it's the most reasonable thing ever. Like, why would anyone ever vote for somebody who actively made their life worse? Yeah, Hillary is a fucking demon. I mean, to me, her entire career can be encapsulated in what she said of Gaddafi. We came, we saw, he died. Like, she's a ghoul. Like, she's a total ghoul. It seems like people voted for Trump because they want their opposition to suffer. I think that the Trump is actually an extremely important cultural figure, because I think he represents like a Molotov cocktail for the system of the capitalist dictatorship. That there's a clip that I was seeing going around recently of Trump at the first debates, when someone like Jeb Bush was still considered a viable candidate, and Donald Trump was just saying straight out, like, you are here because of your donors. You are here because you answer to wealthy donors. You are here because you pay fealty to corporate power, right? And I don't do any of that. I'm here on my own, right? I support myself, which is, of course he's being a bit facetious and a bit bullshitty there. But he was the first actual politician to stand on the political stage and admit it and say out loud what we all knew to already be true, that the system is rigged and these guys are all bought. And that's what I think propelled Trump forward more than anything else, was that he was willing to say out loud that which we all knew, but no one was willing to say politically. And he shone light on the corruption of the system. And when he got into debates with Hillary, she would try to hit him with corruption stuff, and he would just outright be like, yeah, so what? I'm smart. Like, Dave Chappelle was the guy that said this. It's like, she's like, he doesn't pay taxes. And he would just say, that makes me smart. And if you want me to change it, then you need to change the tax code. But you're not going to do that because you benefit from it too. And so what it did is it turned Trump into the honest liar, right? That he was willing to game the system and do the things that everybody else was doing, but he was going to be honest about it, and he was going to tell people he was doing it, which I think garnered him a lot of respect from a lot of people, and I think people were just happy somebody was saying it out loud for once. Because if they were going to suffer, they weren't going to be bullshitted while it was happening at the same time. They weren't going to be forced to eat this shit sandwich and have someone smile and say, doesn't it taste delicious? That at least Donald Trump was saying, yeah, eat that shit sandwich. Yeah, it's a shit sandwich, all right, but you're going to eat that shit sandwich. Eat that shit, right? It's just straight out, I say it all the time on this channel. It's the same thing over and over again. If two people are standing in front of you, and you've got to pick one of them, and one says, hey, if you vote for me, I'm going to punch you in the face, and the other guy says, if you vote for me, I am not going to punch you in the face, and then you go, I'm going to vote for the guy who's not going to punch me in the face, and then he immediately punches you in the face. Like, the next time around, you're just going to be like, I'm going to go for the guy who says he's going to punch me in the face, because at least he's not lying about it. At least I can prepare. At least I can be like, okay, hachawa katana, right? Instead of being like, okay, I voted for the guy who said he's not going to punch me in the face. Oh! Like, the system has decayed so badly. It's degraded so seriously and become so incredulous that simply standing up and saying, even as you are involved in the system of corruption, simply standing up and saying, yeah, this is a corrupt system, is enough to get you support. And that's exactly what happened with Trump. That's exactly what happened with Trump. Cotton, yeah. Socialism is the deliberate approach to build communism. It's a transition, yeah. And the more you read about what's being said in socialist nations like China, right, that's pretty well understood. Like, they all pretty well understand that what we are building is towards communism, that we are not there yet. That even China doesn't say that it is. It calls itself socialist with Chinese characteristics. It doesn't actually call itself communist because it understands that that's a procedure and a process that it's reaching towards. Isaac says, the Democrats think people are stupid. They kept saying that Russia is hacking their system, but don't do anything to stop it, yeah? A bank is hacked in the morning, they'll have a patch by the afternoon, yeah? Madeleine Albright said that the death of 500,000 children in Iraq due to the sanctions was worth it. Yeah. Like, these people are ghouls. Like, these people are ghouls. And we're all just supposed to keep voting for them and keep supporting them and keep throwing our chips in and pretending like it's fine. It's what was so funny with Biden being like the whole, like, we've got to defeat fascism. We got to defeat Trump because we got to defeat fascism. And like, what are you talking about, Democrats? Like, you think you guys are not the fascists? Like, you think you're not acting in a similar way? Like, it's just good cop, bad cop all the way down. That, like, the Democrats are basically like, we gotta we gotta protect people's rights, and then do nothing to actually protect those people's rights. Like, don't put in any legislation, don't do anything. It's like what happened with that's the stupidest sentence I've ever said in my life. It's like Roe v. Wade, right? It's like Roe v. Wade. That they had all the time in the world. At one point, the Democrats had all three chambers, right? And they didn't do anything. They didn't do anything. That if you want any evidence that the Democrats are just as corrupt, just as fraudulent, just as ridiculous, just as big a liars, it was when Obama had the Congress, the Senate, and the presidency. Those three chambers were all Democratic. They could have pushed through any legislation they wanted to. They could have pushed through any legislation they wanted to, and they didn't. Why? Because they're allies with the Republicans, and they all work for corporate power. It's all a fucking grift. Like, it's all a fucking grift. Like, the whole thing, and the more you read about it, the more you learn about it, the more you realize it was designed to be a grift. It's supposed to be a grift. Literally, the framers of the Constitution were like, yeah, we need to keep power within the wealth of the nation. That the people who sit in this chamber should be from the wealthy classes. Like, that's the point. It was built as a capitalist dictatorship. It was built so that only the rich, or at least people who are paying fealty to the rich, could ever get into the halls of power. Like, no wonder it's failing. Like, no wonder it's in this collapsing system. No wonder other systems are beginning to trounce it. Like, you can't have this amount of waste. You can't have this amount of failure built into your system and then expect it to compete. Right? Like, it's like we're lugging around these huge weights we don't need to lug around. This baggage that we're lugging around, pretending like we're going to actually succeed. Like, we're going to actually be able to compete against a people who don't do that, right? And, like, I say it over and over on this channel, and I will defend it, and probably and will be defending it until the day I die, that China is going to blow us away. It's not going to be close. We are going to look stupid. Like, we are going to collapse into a feudal dark age while China actually builds, like, the future. That the future is going to be Chinese. And the reason why that's the case is because we've built this entire failed culture around an idea that we should pay fealty to parasites. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's going to take us 100 years to recover. And maybe not even then. Yeah, just me. I want bipartisanship to get things passed. Exactly. Like he had that whole thing where he met with a bunch of Republicans to discuss about like as if he needed them, like as if he needed them to be on board. Like it was so ridiculous. Like it was just pageantry. It was so performative. Yeah, Isaac, 33% of blacks and Latinos who voted for Obama twice were disillusioned and all turned to vote for Trump. Yeah, it was their fault. No, I don't have anything wrong with the Chinese future, Fiery Onion, but it is a warning for the people who believe that America is the greatest country in the world. That we have this manifest destiny to lead the world into the future, right? That we're the leaders. Well, no, we're not. And there's a reason why we're not. It's because our leaders are these deluded, detached, fraudulent, incredulous losers who actually genuinely believe that they are where they are because they're the best. It's just absolutely childish, and we're going to uh, uh, we're going to experience fairly major collapses because of it. Snake says, hopefully that struggle will produce more Marxist understanding. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I suspect America will simply balkanize. I've said this a few times on this channel, or more than a few times. I'll continue saying it. I suspect America will break apart, and that Marxist understanding might begin to take hold in states, individual states. So, like Seattle, Washington would be a place that I think is actually pretty rife for it. Los Angeles, right? Like I think that there are places where Marxism could take hold, and that you could have like a single state get taken over in such a way. But the idea that all of America will suddenly become communist and that there'll be this big communist revolution that goes throughout all of America, nah, that's not going to happen. That 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 the momentum is on the side of collapse, and we'll see a series of balkanization moments. Uh, we're already seeing those moments. We're already seeing balkanization moments, and they're gonna get faster. They're gonna get more apparent and more obvious, and from that may arise a unifying principle and a unifying idea of and there might be forces that begin to re-amalgamate and reconnect those disparate states from one another. But I mean, if history is your guide, like if you just take a look at history, like the most likely thing to happen, and it's the most likely thing to happen by a mile, is that the American empire will collapse, and that the federal system of the American economy will simply cease to operate, and nobody will pay any attention to it anymore. And America will basically break up into a series of just states, and you might have some states that band together. Like it's believable that like some of the Midwest states and some of the southern states kind of band together and create their own sort of federated bodies. I mean, the South will rise again is a motto that people still say and believe. And but it's also believable that like places like California will just, go on their own. Like, why shouldn't California? California is the third largest economy on the continent. Like the so to me that's the most likely outcome. And from there we will begin to see some kind of move forward. But like when China was experiencing its weak moment on the world stage, like they called it the 100 years of national humiliation. And I suspect we'll face the same thing, that we are going to experience 100 years of humiliation. And we're going to see just enormous abandonment by huge corporate forces. Like Walmarts will shut down, as they are already shutting down, right? That people will go into Walmarts and continue to loot them. Amazons will continue to be looted. The supply chain between these distributors and the Chinese manufacturers will break down. That China will simply stop shipping stuff to us because all we have to exchange for it are dollars they don't want anymore. So it's just There's a lot of things that I think are going to happen, and they're going to happen very quickly. And there are no forces that I can see. There are no forces that I can see that are even attempting to seriously unify these forces, right? Like, who's even making the attempt? Like, you've got, basically it's Bernie Sanders standing up and being like, we should have health care for all, right? Just like the most rudimentary basic idea. And I don't think it's going to be enough. I don't think that the system is going to allow it to happen. And so collapse is in the cards. Isaac says Americans are so brainwashed, it will be impossible to become socialist. The idea of exceptionalism is ingrained in their brains so deep that it will make it impossible. I mean, I don't know about this, right? I don't know about this. I do think that there is like a language/trigger word problem going on in America, where like you can talk communism with people. You can talk about the fundamental issues and talk about the ideas of communism, but the moment you say communism, it is like there's a trigger word. Like I say it a lot on this channel. Like, when it comes out, like when we have a church commission, and it comes out that the CIA was always brainwashing us with these phones, I'm gonna hold that up and be like, told you so. Told you so. Like, people, I think, do have trigger words inside of them. And I think that those trigger words are words like communism. Welfare is one. Entitlements, I think, is one. That you can talk about the ideas surrounding those things very successfully with the vast majority of Americans and Westerners. But the moment you actually say the word, then the brain shuts off, and it's just suddenly a trillion died. Oh my God, Venezuela iPhones! Like and I really do think it is like literally a type of brainwashing. Like, I don't have the smoking gun on this. I don't have the CIA report, but should such a report come out, I will absolutely be like, told you so. I will hold it in front of all of you and be like, yeah, they were brainwashing us with these phones the whole time. What's happening in TikTok land? I'd love to see Cuba, China, North Korea, and Vietnam. Yeah, I'd love to see these places. I do walk around videos on my channel all the time where I'll show people walking around these areas, and they're beautiful. This is what's so weird about the American perspective. Is like, Americans think that these places are like shitholes, and then you actually look at them and you're like, oh, these places are beautiful. You know what? I said it out loud, and now I'm going to do it. Now I'm going to do it. I would love to walk around China right now. If you guys want to come over to my YouTube channel, right, you can watch this too. China walk around video. It's where do we want to walk around? I love I love this place. Let's go to Wuhan. Let's go to Wuhan. It's this is one of my favorite things to do on this channel, because I find that nothing destroys someone's perspective more than just seeing the place they're criticizing with their own eyes. That we really do have this sort of odd, strange belief inside of us that says, I have 0 likes on TikTok. I find that to be really, really impossible to believe. I find that to be really impossible to believe, dude. I'm absolutely sure that my channel is getting completely banned off of TikTok. That's crazy. Man, these for all their talk about free speech, for all their talk about this kind of stuff, like, these guys are fascists. Like, it's absolutely wild to watch. It's absolutely wild to be alive and to exist in this moment where our society is basically ruled by fascists who, if you want to say the most racist stuff possible, if you want to shit on the poor and the vulnerable, then you're given multi-million-dollar platforms. But if you think that we should, oh, you know what, Cotton? Let's do it right now. You're right. Let's do a Vietnam. Let's go straight up Ho Chi Minh. Straight up. Because I feel like when Westerners have a when they think of these places, they're 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 thinking of like paper buildings and like grass huts and stuff, right? They're thinking of uh, uh, they're thinking of just like tribal villages basically. And then you do these walk around videos and you're just like, looks pretty straightforward, right? Looks pretty straightforward. Looks pretty fine to me. Like what's scary about this? Why am I supposed to think that what they're doing is bad? Like why am I supposed to think that these are oppressed people? Like why am I supposed to think that this is a like strange or unusual sort of a place? You know, like I feel like I'm looking at like a section of Toronto. Yeah, and that's another part of it, right? Like I can show you videos. I've seen walk around videos of like Philadelphia is a good one, where like you can just see the tent cities, right? Like where are the tent cities? And it's just like you've got a culture that basically just decided that we're not going to accept that in our society. We're just going to say, if you are homeless, we're going to try to get you a home. And we just, as a people in the West, don't care about that at all. Where we look at those people and say, you just need to work harder. That there must be something wrong with them. And they just, we just allow it to persist. We just allow it to persist. And that to me is the worst part of it. Like it's not that the phenomenon happens. Like that to me is like, you know, societies experience all kinds of things, and it's a complex structure, and so I understand that. But it's that we obviously see that there is obviously a problem, that there it is, right? We've got tents in the parks. They're called tent cities, for God's sakes, and we seem to simply accept that problem should just persist. And we just say, yeah, that's fine. That's those people just need to work harder. Like that to me is what's so wild about living in this culture and living in this society. That I would rather live in a society that was attempting to solve its problems and failing than to live in a society that was not attempting to solve its problems at all. And that's basically what's happening in the West. That we're just not even attempting to solve our problems. This is hilarious. This guy's getting caught up in like a little traffic jam of people. He's like walking in a commercial district, and it's very, very... I think one of the funniest things that is happening in Vietnam is that you've got a bunch of American boomers that are retiring to Vietnam, and the Vietnamese are basically just like, yeah, come on in. Whatever, sure, you bombed the shit out of us, right? To me, I think the thing that's astounding is that these cities exist at all in a place like Vietnam. Like that's what's really quite astounding. Like when you learn about the history of the Vietnam War, and when you actually read up on the Vietnam War, it's astounding that they have any infrastructure whatsoever. It's crazy. Like it's absolutely crazy what we did in Vietnam. Snake says, my friend in Vietnam, Tuetak on YouTube, is raising baby otters and trying to rebuild the conservation efforts in the mangroves where he is located in the country. Well, that's nice. What an amazing shout out. Dude, we got to look this guy up. What are you talking about? There's a guy on YouTube, Tuetak, who is trying Dude, what is happening in my life right now? This guy is Merman Tian returns Cat Tian National Park for saving the bears. Dude, what are you even talking about right now? What a beautiful story. This guy is like straight up like, we need otter conservation. Let's go, baby otters. Let's ride. That's wild, man. That's wild. And subscribe. Easy subscription. All right, let's get back to. That's hilarious, man. Ugh. Ugh. He says he's trying to build conservation efforts with the government. He recently got the otters kidnapped by poachers and had them arrested yesterday. Good. Fuck those guys. Yeah, shout out. Are you kidding? That's great. It's a great story. That's some lovely direct action right there. Good to see you, Fiddleford. The, like, dude, I can't imagine, like, being a poacher. Like, how desperate is your life? Like, how crazy is that? Poaching otters, no less. Is there a big, like, otter market? Must be. Friggin' ridiculous. Ugh. Yeah, so somebody in the TikTok chat, we're not allowing shit. The death cult's got a blade to our livelihoods. Yeah. That as true a thing as I've ever heard, dude. That's actually a fair statement, right? That as we are all fighting and as we are all struggling, we also have to pay bills, and the people we're paying the bills to are the people who are jacking prices, right? They're raising the rents, they're raising the price of housing, they're raising the price of groceries, right? All the while telling us that it's a you problem, that you've just got to grind set harder, right? At this stage in the game, there is like a general acceptance that we all just need to come to terms with the fact that we just live in a lawless society, that the laws exist in order to perpetuate the wealth of the wealthy, that we don't live in a society that's designed to sustain human life, to even sustain itself. And so we've just got to look to each other for support as best as we can and to support one another. Get to know your neighbors. Jay Pringle, thanks so much for your donation, bud. I appreciate it. Good opportunity to say like, share, subscribe, guys. Hit the bells, hit the whistles, right? If you have $1 in that pocket, think about donating it to the Patreon. If you're already donating $1, think about making it $2. If I can get 400 people to donate $5, I can do this full time. That's more or less the goal, is to begin doing this full time. Because right now I essentially work a full-time job, and then I also do this. And it is, as you can guess, exhausting. I find myself to be exhausted most of the time. I don't mind being exhausted, but I'd rather be exhausted doing something I care to do. Snake says they get like $250 an otter. They go after Tues fairly often. What a ridiculous world. Like who's even buying these otter? Who's the person who's like, yes, give me the otters? That's like a real Cruella de Vil story there. Just some like lady showing up being like, yes, it's genuine otter skin. Like, fucking creepy. Okay, guys, I gotta pause for a second. I just gotta go use the washroom. I'll be right back. Please enjoy the beautiful city of Ho Chi Minh. You know what would really make my life good right now? Is some drugs. So I'm gonna get some Tylenol. Give me a second here. Drugs, drugs, drugs. Some are good, some are bad. Drugs, drugs, drugs. Ask your mom or ask your dad. Drugs, drugs, drugs. Some are good. Some are bad. Drugs, drugs, drugs. Ask your mom or ask your dad. Ugh. Well, I mean, that's what's so funny about, like, the system of capital fiddle forward. It's like, isn't a drug dealer just a person who is grind setting? Isn't a drug dealer just somebody who's, like, trying to figure out how to, you know, feed their family, get by, do a thing? But the trouble with becoming a drug dealer is that you're cutting into the CIA's business, right? The lumpen proletariat, reserve army of labor, will stop at nothing once given the opportunity for change, I think. I mean, I think that the change is coming. Like, when I take a look at Chicago, when I take a look at these kids in Philadelphia, that the younger generation understands that it's been abandoned. That you take a look at how voting patterns are working. You take a look at how generational patterns are working. And like I think the major difference between Gen Z and the millennials is that when Gen Z looks up to the generation that's above them, there's significantly less gaslighting going on. That the gaslighting that came down from boomers and Gen X towards millennials was significant, but it wasn't enough. That because the millennials were living an experience and we're getting all of this advice from boomers and Gen X that maybe worked at that time, but obviously was ridiculous. And so now you've got Gen Z coming up, and the millennials are not gaslighting them. The millennials are like, yeah, you're being abandoned. Like you're getting completely fucked over. I'm having like routine conversations with the young people around me all the time. And they're just like, yeah, I expect this to just be a shit storm. I expect this to be ridiculous. There's no expectation whatsoever of like, go and live your dreams, and you can follow your heart and do what you like and all that kind of stuff. Like, none of that exists. It really is just like, if you can get a job as a dishwasher, you're doing okay at this stage in the game. I actually think that that's genuinely the truth. That sure, it would be nice if you could go be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, all that kind of stuff, but the student debt's so ridiculous and so overwhelming at this stage in the game, and people are like, oh well, we always need electricians and we always need tradespeople. It's like, yeah, so a bunch of people are going to go into the trades, and what's that going to do? It's going to dilute the market, because the only people who can actually afford the work of the tradespeople is a small vanishing minority of wealthy people. And so it's not going to be too much longer until you've got like electricians who are and construction workers and all these guys complaining that their wages are stagnating and dropping and declining. It's like, yeah, because all the wealth has piled underneath a small minority of people. And that small minority of people doesn't need the services of a million electricians, right? It's just very straightforward shit. And it seems to me, and it's not perfect, obviously, it's not 100%, but it just seems to me like the generation coming up is much less willing to buy into the gaslighting. And one of the things that I definitely see happening, and which encourages me, is that young people are beginning to understand that the people who are talking this like grind set game, who are talking about like hustle culture, grind set, that they're understanding that these people are losers. I think that's the big thing, and the big change. Like, yeah, maybe you'll get like a certain amount of wealth, but everyone will think you're a piece of shit, because you are. Like, you're just like you're eliciting all of this antisocial behavior. You're a pain in the ass to be around. You're a judgmental prick. Nobody likes you, and I'm seeing more and more that this attitude is beginning to persist. Like, capitalism doesn't reward you for being a good person. It doesn't reward you for helping your neighbor. It doesn't reward you for volunteering your time, for taking care of the poor and the vulnerable. It doesn't do any of that, right? And then it tries to convince you that abandoning all people around you for money makes you a cool person. Like you can see this if you go to Kevin O'Leary's YouTube channel, right? Mr. Wonderful. Nothing narcissistic about that at all. You can just see a guy who's desperately trying to convince you that he's actually cool, when in reality he's probably one of the biggest losers that Canada has ever produced. Oh, Adam wants to get into the electronic voter fraud conspiracy. I don't think I care, honestly. I'll be curious to see why you say she didn't fight it. She didn't fight it because I don't mind a good conspiracy theory. It's been a while since I've had a good conspiracy theory conversation. And like so much of what this channel is about is trying to separate what is conspiracy and what is real. And that line can sometimes be very fine. Be a very, very fine line. I don't necessarily I understand the concern with the electronic, like I don't really understand why we're using electronic devices to do voting. Like I really don't know why we are introducing digital anything into the concept of voting. Like voting shouldn't be difficult. It shouldn't be hard. There shouldn't be a weird little electronic system connecting to it. How difficult is it to count ballots? Like it just seems it seems like it's being made purposefully complex to introduce exactly this conversation into the system. Like you can really never trust it. Like it's already kind of a fragile system in the first place, because who counts the votes? Who's responsible for counting the votes? How do you trust who's counting the votes? And now you're introducing into the conversation this idea of the possibility of electronic fraud, the possibility of like a hacker coming in and changing the results and all that kind of stuff. Like, and it doesn't seem like you're gaining anything. That's the part about it I think about the most. Is like, and I have always thought about it from the perspective of like what are you actually gaining by making this all electronic? What does it serve? Does it make it better? How? And it seems to me like all it is just a way to give some company somewhere money for a toy that we don't need. Fiddleford says, my 70-year-old uncle told me to join the army. I'm brainwashed. I'm lacking life experience. Yeah, that's the thing to do. I'm going to go kill little children overseas for oil barons. Yeah, that's for sure. And that means that I don't have any life experience, right? Because I don't want to murder innocent people on behalf of opium magnates and the CIA. I'm lacking life experience. Thanks, Grandpa. Right? I'm quite serious and quite genuine when I say life is going to be better when these guys are gone. Like, I know that's a really brutal thing to say, and I understand why people might get upset with me when I say it, but I just think it's true that the boomers have shown enough. That they've given us enough. They've given us enough evidence that we can say pretty much across the board, life will be better when the boomers are gone. And I understand that maybe you know a boomer who you really like. I know boomers who I like, right? But as a cohort, as like a unit, like they're objectively bad, and life will be better when they're gone. And if you find yourself having suicidal thoughts, if you find yourself thinking, because suicide's one of the major causes of death now, right? If you find yourself having suicidal thoughts, if you find yourself sitting there being like, tonight might be the night, if you're out there listening to this right now, considering at any point that you're going to commit suicide, maybe I can convince you not to, just by saying, if you stick around, by default, you're going to live in a world without the boomers in it. It's going to be a better world. Adam, okay, she didn't fight against the electronic voter fraud because it would expose the DNC doing electronic voter fraud against Bernie in California. That, and the DNC probably likes the fact that black people cannot vote. Easier for the Overton window to go further to the right. Interesting ideas. I mean, I am not against this idea of like voter fraud, and I'm not really against this concept. Like, I'm not standing here saying it's no, of course that didn't happen, and of course that doesn't occur. I just like, especially in the case of like Trump versus Clinton, like, I think my big question is who's responsible for committing the fraud. That I think is my big question. Like, who's making that decision? Who's the person who's swinging it the one way or the other? Who's the puppet master then, Adam? That would be the question that I would ask. Who's the person who's deciding it shall be Trump? It shall be, because in regards to Clinton versus Sanders, like, that decision makes all the sense in the world, right? Bernie Sanders is saying we should give a penny to the poor, and so obviously they're like, well, we can't give a penny to the poor. That would show that we have a moral conscience and that we care about somebody, and we don't. So we're gonna go with Hillary. But in the case of Trump versus Hillary, like, how does going for Trump make more sense? Isaac says Biden is the one who committed voter fraud when he forced the CIA to say that Hunter's laptop was a Russian conspiracy. Dude, the whole Hunter laptop thing, dude, is so perfect. It's so perfectly American. Just literally like a coked up, party-fueled idiot, son of a president who, by any account that I have ever seen, is just a massive, massive loser, who's just taking his life's opportunity to fuck around with prostitutes and strippers, and is just basically living a party boy, frat boy life. Leaves just massive incriminating evidence in the hands of some, like, computer repair guy. It's just like, why did Hunter even have this thing? Why did anybody ever think to themselves, yeah, this guy should have incriminating evidence. This guy should have access to anything. Like, a guy like Hunter should essentially just be working as like a low-level junior partner in some CEO establishment position somewhere, and basically just be forgotten about. Like, you should never give this guy anything. You should never have any responsibility. He should never be connected with anything. Like, it's just fucking ridiculous. The Biden shit, man. There's this really great TikTok trend going around where people are taking... somebody asked Joe Biden if he felt he was cognitive enough, if he was mentally ready to be the president, and his response to it was like unhinged. Like, it wasn't like manic or anything, but just like it wasn't like a stable string of consciousness. It was like full of starts and stops and interrupts and non sequiturs and very much just like a bad answer to that very specific question. And then a bunch of TikTokers are taking this and basically just doing like a karaoke to it. And it's hilarious. I'm so happy that this is what the Biden presidency is turning into. Just people we all understand, even people who like Biden, I think, understand that this is that Biden is demented. Like, he is. He's demented. And he's the perfect person to be the president in this moment at this time. Just, the system is coming off the rails. The system is revealing itself to be unhinged and demented. The system is showing everyone how untrustworthy it is and how it has to be isolated and how it needs to be like, okay, Grandpa, you go sit in the corner while the adults make decisions. And the president, while this is happening, is a demented old man. Like, a demented old man who has played his part in the decline of the empire that he's been given charge of. It's just absolutely perfect. Plutocrats prop up the autocrats. It's the table of contents in black shirts in red. Yeah, big shout out to Michael Parenti's black shirts in red. A must read. All right, Adam, let's go. I love talking conspiracy with you, dude. They do not do electronic voter fraud anymore. Now the game is purging literally millions of black and other people of color voters from being able to vote. Greg Palast got the evidence that you're looking for. Oh, that I believe. No, you don't need to convince me of that, dude. Like, that, I'm like, yeah, that absolutely happens for sure. Like, just purging millions of black people and people of color from the voting rolls. Yeah, that absolutely happens. That's like the GOP strategy. Like, that's not. I don't think that's up for debate. I don't even think that's a conspiracy. Like, it's like it's on the same level as like gerrymandering, right? That, like, gerrymandering is real. Like, we know they do it. We've got the evidence. We've got them talking about it. We know that they do it. We've seen them gerrymander districts to get rid of people's seats, like they did to Dennis Kucinich, right? Like, so gerrymandering is not some like crazy conspiracy theory. Like, it's a strategy that they do to maintain power for themselves. And I think that this, exactly what you're talking about here, is the same thing, right? It's the same story. So you guys who want to come chat with me, you can come over to YouTube, right? Yeah, it's in the description, right? You up here only responding really to YouTube chat. The reason why I don't just have conversations with people is because I get a lot of far-right Nazis. Like, sorry, guys. Please come on over to YouTube. Anyone can see they're corrupt, but also dumb. Yeah. Biden family, not the sharpest tools. No. But hey, it doesn't need to be a sharp tool, right? A club isn't a sharp tool, but it'll cave someone's head in all the same. Yeah. No, it's Biden is not hurting the country. He's just revealing he's just very revealing. Like these last couple of presidents, right? Trump was very revealing. Biden was very revealing. That's my favorite with Trump. Like, why do Americans actually think that they have credibility anymore? Like, you guys elected a game show host. Like, that's my absolute favorite. Like, and there's a good chance that the game show host will get elected again. Right? Wouldn't that be wild? Like, if Trump wins again, like, what credibility does America have to critique anybody and to critique any nation if the people who are winning these elections are literally game show hosts? Like, yeah, Fiddleford, you're right. Crackdowns on protesters, the LGBT influences as well. I'm not trans, but I certainly don't feel safe any longer. Yeah, I wouldn't feel like some of the laws that they're even attempting to pass in some of these states are unhinged. Just like on a manic Joker kind of a level. And I think the scariest thing about a lot of this legislation that is getting passed is that it's being pushed forward and lobbied for by people who are insane. Like, by people who are genuinely, like, I saw a Vice article. There was this big leak that came out of these, and they're Christian organizations, obviously. And you sort of expect that when these sorts of Christian organizations, when they're talking in public, that it's going to somehow be different when they're talking about the issue to each other, right? You sort of expect that there's going to be kind of a cynicism. You sort of expect that they're gonna have a bit of awareness about what it is that they're doing. But this huge email leak happened, and Vice News reports on it, and it really is like a bunch of far-right conservative Christians saying things like, we're going to make sure that these trans people can't exist in this society anymore for the glory of Jesus. And when Jesus comes back, he's going to see the good work that we've done for him, and then he'll bestow upon us golden crowns. Hallelujah, praise Jesus, every single one of you. We've got good news coming from Sister Martha down in South Carolina. We've got big gains going on to make sure that the trans people in South Carolina won't be able to wear inappropriate clothing. That Jesus, when he comes back, he's going to see that a woman looks like a woman, a man looks like a man. Praise Jesus and all power to him. Like, this is how these people talk. Like, what I just said there, that's not hyperbolic. That's not me making fun of them. That's how they talk. That's what they say to each other. That's what makes the whole thing so fucking crazy. That's what makes it insane. Is this recognition that it isn't coming from a place of deep cynicism. It isn't coming from like, we're going to manipulate this situation and then we're going to get in there and we're going to make sure we can pass the legislation. That they're actually being genuine. That they're actually being genuine. That they really do believe that Jesus Christ is looking down on them from heaven and telling them to fight back against trans people and the spread of this trans ideology for the glory of Christ. Like, we have fallen as a people. Like, we have fallen as a people if these are the types of people who are gaining any political influence at all. That any rational, sane culture that was organized along any lines that were reasonable on any level would look at these people and say, go away, you crazy cultists, you weird little fringe minority of creepy weirdos. Like, we are but the bottom line is that it comes down to money. It comes down to money. That these people have money. And they're using that money to launch this crusade, this fucking genocidal crusade. And while they're doing it, they're all praising Jesus about it. Like, it's crazy. It's wild what's happening. And, like, I don't mean to be, like, fearmongery about it, but it is true to say that, like, they're not going to stop with just trans people. It's not like they're going to do this to the trans community and to trans people and then be like, well, we've done it. Jesus is happy with just that. They're going to go after gay people. They're going to extend it. They're going to pick their minority group. They're going to go after black people. They're going to go after other groups. And it'll all be for the glory of Jesus Christ. Jesus wants to see a pure Aryan race. Like, it's gonna go down like that. For real. Like, it's not bullshit. Adam, long article on Discord under articles, Hillary rigged against Bernie. Now, I believe this. I definitely believe this, that Hillary did rig it against Bernie. And I actually do also think that Biden... it was rigged with Biden against Bernie as well. For sure, I think that's true. That internally, the DNC is more than willing to rig this. Like, the whole structure of the DNC is a rigged game. The superdelegate system by itself Like, they don't really need to rig anything. They don't need to rig the counting of the votes. The superdelegates can basically just pick their candidate. So they don't really need to even rig it on the kind of in the way that you're suggesting. But so I definitely I don't think I would ever even fight you against that. I would be like, yeah, of course, that they just picked Hillary essentially. The RNC attempted to rig against Trump, but Trump beat rigging. Well, because the system of the RNC is less rigged. Like, that's what's really funny about the Republican system versus the Democratic system. That the Democrats have a genuinely rigged system. Like, the superdelegate system in the DNC essentially ensures that the only candidate that will ever be picked in the Democratic Party will be one that the wealthy donorship class wants. That someone like Bernie Sanders will never, ever, ever be their leader unless there's some kind of really significant thing that happens. That's why there's this one candidate who I like to listen to, Marianne Williamson. I really like listening to her, and she's trying to primary Biden for this next thing because there's rumors swirling around that Biden's going to step down and that they're going to open up the primary and all this kind of stuff. And I like listening to her, but she's never going to be the candidate because she's actually saying we should care about people and actually have a conscience and be moral. And that's not what the system rewards, and that's not what the system's ever going to be about. And funnily enough, the RNC is more willing to allow any candidate to win. Like, there is this sort of odd truth within the right wing where they say, like, free speech, and they kind of mean it. Like, there's kind of these examples of them being, and this is a good example where they're like, yeah, Trump won. The people want Trump, so Trump won. And I think, but more or less they're fine with it, because even though they, like, the Republicans have an awareness. They know that it's not good that Trump is their leader. Like, it's bad optics. Right? He's not statesmanly. He sort of discredits the project in many ways. But at the end of the day, he's still going to cut their taxes. So Trump rigged against Hillary. Electronic vote fraud happened for 20 plus years. I mean, I expect that there would be like attempts for sure. How meaningful are they, though? Like, that would be what I would need to. I'm not terribly convinced on that level. That when it comes to the general, and I think that's the question that I have. Like, who's deciding then? Like, it's not Trump rigging it, right? How does Trump rig it? Like, it's who's someone's. There's a third party. There's a third party involved in this process. Who is that? Santora says, they will march over everyone until they begin to rip themselves apart again. Yeah. Local turf alternatives are a big headache to me. They used to be my homies. Yeah. I mean, it's watching this trans issue evolve in this way has been a bit wild from my perspective, because my feeling has always been, yeah, like, leave these people alone. Like, why? Who cares? Like, who cares? Like, and I don't know. Maybe that's because I've gotten some distance from the way I used to think. But even when I was like really anti-gay, because I used to be really anti-gay when I was younger, because I was a fundamentalist Christian myself. But I was never like interested in doing violence. It was always like an existential sort of spiritual thing. That I was always coming from it from this angle of like, well, Jesus is going to have things to say about that. But there was never a sense inside of me that like I wanted to go to people's houses and lynch them and all that kind of shit. Like that part of the conversation didn't really exist. It was always existential for me. It was always like a spiritual issue, an issue of the spirit. And so to see people who are actually trying to do violence and who are actually trying to do harm to this very small, like minority group of people who are causing no one anywhere any problems at any moment is very weird. It's very, very weird and creepy. And I don't really understand why it persists or it exists in the way that it does. It just seems very, very strange to me that like what does Matt Walsh care about this issue? Like why do these fundamentalist Christians care about this on this kind of a level? Bernie got effed on the campaign trail both times. They cheated. You can't convince me otherwise. Oh yeah, I definitely believe it. Like I never give any pushback on that at all. Like, yeah, the Democrats are not going to allow someone like Bernie Sanders to be their leader. Like, they're just not going to allow that to happen. The corporate power structure is not going to permit people like Bernie Sanders or people who are actually saying, like, we should care about the poor. Like, it's just never going to happen that way. The system's designed to prevent it. Oh, I know, buddy. I know, the system's designed to prevent it. Oh, this is an article that I actually I've been trying to remember to read this one for some time. This comes from Fortune magazine. Finance Capitalism. We may be looking at the end of capitalism. This is from one of the world's oldest and largest investment banks, warns greedflation has gone too far. When costs go up, so do profits. That's not how capitalism is supposed to work, but that is the recent trend. For over a year now, consumers and businesses, both in the US and worldwide, have struggled with stubborn inflation. But the soaring costs haven't prevented corporations from raking in record profits. The companies in the last year's Fortune 500 alone generated an all-time high $1.8 trillion in profits on $16.1 trillion in revenue. Voices largely on the left side of the political spectrum have been sounding the alarm on this. Think Bernie Sanders in Congress or Jon Stewart's recent grilling of former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers. But now an economist at one of the world's oldest and greatest investment banks is singing the same tune. Albert Edwards, a global strategist at the 159-year-old bank Societe Generale, just released a blistering note on the phenomenon that has come to be called greedflation. Corporations, particularly in developed economies like the US and UK, have used rising raw material costs amid the pandemic and the war in Ukraine as an excuse to raise prices and expand profit margins to new heights, he said. And the French investment bank isn't just historic. It's one of the select banks considered to be systemically important by the Financial Stability Board, the G20's international body dedicated to safeguarding the global financial system. Furthermore, Edwards wrote in Tuesday edition of his Global Strategy Weekly, after 4 decades of working in finance, he's never seen anything like this unprecedented and astonishing levels of corporate greedflation in this economic cycle. To this point, a January study from the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City found that markup growth, the increase in the ratio between the price a firm charges and its cost of production, was far more important factor driving inflation in 2021 than it has been throughout economic history. Oh, my buddy. Typically, higher commodity prices and labor costs squeeze corporate margins, typically if the economy is slowing. But Edwards pointed to data released by the Bureau of Economic Analysis last week, and it showed profit margins still near a record high relative to costs in the fourth quarter. The strategist said he assumed margins would have declined sharply at the end of last year as the economy slowed. But instead, how wrong I was. Like, I'm not going to read the rest of this because I'm feeling fucking sick as shit, but looking at their conclusions on how to deal with greedflation, price controls seem to emerge as a favorite method of control, Edwards argued. Like, yeah, price controls. Like, good to see you, Tinker. Like, you've got important banks. Like, a bank that is considered systemically important to the G20 is saying out loud in front of everyone in public that if we just keep rising prices, it's going to destroy capitalism. And what are they doing? They're just still rising prices, not doing anything about it. They don't give a shit at all. Crypt Keeper's running again, guys. Crypt Keeper 2024. Dude, we might as well get the Crypt Keeper in there. That's what we should do. We should get another Crypt Keeper run, and he should be the president, right? We should have President Crypt Keeper. I think it would be just as valid and just as interesting. Biden's gonna run again. Dude, they're just gonna wheel him around in like a little cart. Like, I just feel like... why does he want to do it? You know? Like, what is he interested in? What's he doing? It's absolutely crazy to me. Yeah, they aren't even good at capitalism. Yeah. Well, because every time they fail, they just get bailed out. Like, that's the hard truth about it, is that there's no punishment for it. Luc Gagnon, have you seen him on TV recently? I have not. He probably looks like a fucking ghoul, though. Like, he probably just looks like a skeleton wearing skin. The entire idea of the system of capital always was that if you suck, you fail, right? But the 2008 financial collapse showed everybody that if it's too big to fail, right, then, well, it's no longer capitalism, is it? So it's just that failure is no longer part of the system, that they'll just bail them out, right? And if that's the case, then you don't have a capitalist system anymore. I mean, if you actually pressed me, I would argue that the system of capital ended in 2008. That when they bailed those banks out, they basically signaled to the rest of the world that it doesn't matter how bad you fuck up. It doesn't matter if you run a good business. It doesn't matter if your model sucks. It doesn't matter. We will just bail you out. And if that's your system, if your system is just extract as much wealth as you possibly can, and when your system implodes, we'll give you even more money. It's not capitalism. It's not even theoretically capitalism. Yeah, I mean, did Biden, like, of course he lost his mind. Like, he's like, this is the sad reality about talking about this particular issue. Is like, there's a little part of me that wants to kind of be a gleeful imp about it and kind of laugh at how ridiculous it is that the leader of the free world, the man with the finger on the nuclear trigger, is, like, demented. But at the same time, like, he's demented. Like, we shouldn't be putting him through this. He shouldn't be going through this. He's just fucking... Okay, guys. I'm pretty sick. I'm pretty tired. I'm going to call it a little bit earlier this time, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope that I feel better by tomorrow. Oh, really crossing those fingers. Always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it. Oh.